Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with the exceptional story, the Mudlark's Lament. We have made our way through the sewers and we are slightly dirty, but we've come to the deepest wasteways. Tunnels chink and diverge at several angles. Here the undercity geometry of London is laid bare. The topography of the fifth city distorted by the hidden precursors beneath. Some of these culverts descend dramatically and are utterly useless as sewers due to intrusions of geography and architecture. This tunnel is cut off by the crushed ruin of an ancient pagoda. The Precocious Tosher looks around with care. She seems less sure of herself down here. I ain't been in this tunnels before," she explains. "Regiment makes fun of me, but I reckon it's 'cause they're scared. It ain't like the flit here. If you go up, eventually you hit the roof. But down, I think down might go forever." So all of the options here are absolutely terrible. We can leap across an impossible chasm. There is a gap here, into which no water flow and no structures protrude. This is a forsaken spot, twisted by the uncanny forces of multiple falls. That uses our red science quality. Do I have anything that can boost my red science? Hang on. If I do, I'm too blind to find it. So let's just leap across and see what happens. Don't think about it, cross your fingers. We failed. Your eyes report, calmly and confidently, that this fissure in the floor of the culvert is mere inches across, barely a step from one side to the other. But some persistent animal part of you, beyond thought, pure instinct, screams that hidden in those inches is a vast and terrible distance. This is a spot so warped by successive falls that the space around it has twisted. Miles of antique sewer and forsaken ruins compressed into scar tissue. You screw your eyes closed and step across the gap. You pause. You falter. There is a sensation like being wrenched forwards, propelled miles in a single step, and then you are back on the solid ground, an immeasurable distance from where you started. You appear to have brought in a significant quantity of effluvia with you from the space within the gap. The Tosher claps with delight. "How did you do that?" "Oh, my clothes got dirty." "Oh!" The Precocious Tosher is elbow deep in muck, her attention utterly absorbed. This is the borderland of the fifth city's sewer, where the lowest reaches of London impinge on the ruins of the fourth city below. The Tosher has spotted something hidden here. What has she found? Twisting further down and further in, the lost and discarded things get older and stranger. Nestled in these forgotten furrows are cast-off things that were ancient even when the fifth city fell. The Precocious Tosher rummages in a pile of crumbled statuary, emerging with something delicate clutched in her gloved paw. A doll, dressed in waterlogged fourth city fashions. We can admire the dripping doll. It is of ancient make, and drips with who knows what. But the look on the Tosher's face is of pure adoration. Or we can draw her attention to a fourth city relic. This outflow contains a deposit of ancient artifacts, forgotten even by the waters. Some of these look very valuable indeed. Let's go with whimsical again. "Must have belonged to a princess, I reckon." She catches your expression in the gloom and rearranges her face into a mask of defiance. "A warrior princess. One who killed monsters and rode horses and wore the kinds of dresses that you could fight in." She admires the fabrics, the half-smudged expression of fierce serenity on the doll's face. "The other legionaries will be mad jealous." Okay, well, we could make it over the chasm. Shall we see if we can traverse the floor of the vaulted temple? This outflow is interrupted by a cavernous room. Ensconced ceilings and empty sconces and towering equine busts. It's Spelunk. Oh my god, we succeeded. The Precocious Tosher seems more interested in your reaction than she is in the cavernous vaults and horsehead statues. Not so these round, he says with pride. Nobody looks for 'em because they're scared of the stink. But there's stuff down here that even the Forgotten Quarter's forgotten. Your footsteps echo throughout the temple, returning to you from all sides until a legion might be walking through these hallowed halls. The Tosher performs a jig, and a jumbled clitter-clatter returns to her from the shadows. Ah, he cackles with delight. When you tells them how I stopped the monster, make sure to tell them all this other stuff too. The Precocious Tosher looks thoughtful. How long do you reckon it's been since we started? They should nearly all be ready by now. I hope we find the monster soon, otherwise they won't let me hear the end of it. I wanted to beat the beastie first, not keep 'em waiting with the Keep 'em waiting. Cannons? Oh god, why are there cannons? Let's listen for the rushing water. Far behind and far above, there is the unmistakable thundering of a great deal of water. The Precocious Tosher's eyes are wide with alarm. Oh no! The Precocious Tosher's good humour has momentarily fled. It's the evening flush. The capital letters are audible, like a preacher invoking Judgment Day. Accompanied by the rumbling of approaching water, the Tosher explains herself. The evening flush is that time of day when all London returns to their homes, to their kitchens, to their ablutions. The sewers are about to become a lot busier. Well, I guess we have to press on, but there's nothing else to do. Behind you, the evening flush courses through the tunnels. The only hope is to continue and look for a place to wait it out. The Precocious Tosher's bravado falters in the face of the oncoming waters. Don't look at me like that, she snaps. Can't slay a flood now, can I? She chews her lip, looking forwards into the darkness. I told Colonel Molly we'd found a beastie by now. I thought I'd have batted it already. The flush was supposed to be the thingy. She screws her face up with the effort of recollection. The rendezvous signal. The rendezvous, goddammit. From behind, the terrible crashing slosh of London's wastewater grows louder. Come on then, we'll have to find somewhere to hide. Okay, well, the only one I haven't done is to follow an uphill stream. This deep in the sewers, topology does not behave as it should. This trench is tilted by the distortions of the fall, and wastewater trickles up its shallow incline. Well, let's ignore physics. The Precocious Tosher accepts this impossibility with the unjudgmental serenity that only children can muster. You gotta be careful down here, he explains, as you follow the water uphill and upstream. Down ain't like up. It ain't always the same direction. You know the Fisher Kings don't ever come down off the roofs, he scoffs. Look at what they're missing out on. Even the rest of the regiment don't understand. There's treasure down here, cool stuff, like this rock, and old clothes. Try finding any of this in the flip. The rumble of the approaching flush grows louder and louder, a liquid crescendo, portending such filth as it does not bear to consider. The Precocious Tosher sombers. Come on, there must be a safe place to hide. Well, it's time to brace ourselves against the evening flush. The coursing water is upon you now. There is neither hidden nook nor secluded cranny into which you might escape this fetid tide. The foul tide sweeps forward, and then there is rushing water on all sides as the evening flush carries you away. It is all you can do to screw your eyes and mouth shut as tightly as possible. The Tosher reaches out, clutching at your shoulder, so that the two of you do not get separated in the rush. Startling presence of mind. Well, let's hold our breath and hang on tight. The whole city's wastewater is carrying you. Clothe yourself off first and worry about what's next second, as button down the hatches. Your shoulder bashes against brickwork. You are rattled back and forth between worn stone and putrid waters. You are a pebble in the stream, a passenger in the flush. The tunnels whip past too quickly to find purchase, slick with grime and moss and much, much worse. You are purely at the mercy of the current, diverted through narrow and coursing channels until, with a lurching finality, the ground disappears from underneath you. You are dropped, the Tosher clinging to you, into a hole, soaked, battered, and utterly dislocated. Your odour has attracted a buzzing haze of flies. Wonderful. After the all-encompassing sounds of rushing water, the velvet blackness here is startlingly quiet, and your senses adjust, and the edges of things creep out of the oblivion black, patchwork greys in the darkness, the faint music of falling droplets, the unhappy smell of the waters, and now your clothes. We can look around. Stand yourself up, pat yourself down, and get your bearings. Where has the evening flush deposited you? You seem to be in the waterlogged base of a cistern or sump. Brick walls tower on all sides, grimy and featureless, up towards the faint circle of light far above, the hole through which you and the Tosher were dumped by the current. There's no onward passage, no windows or doors around the cistern's base through which you might escape. Something moans in the darkness, and there's the gentle lapping of a body moving through water. The Precocious Tosher is on her feet in a moment, righting herself with the surety and grace of a flit-born urchin. "Hello?" Her voice is swallowed by the darkness. "Is you a monster? I've probably got to batter you if you are, but I don't know, you don't sound like a monster." He's correct. Now more than ever, with the source of the noise mere feet away, the sewer's so-called monster sounds sad and small. A mournful cry floats out of the dark, keening and desperate, but most of all, melodious. Far above and far away, the twisted acoustics of the Fifth City's sewers take the sound and warp it, tangle it through distorting caverns and amplificatory tunnels, until it emerges on the riverbank as something unknowable and awful. But here and now, it does not sound monstrous at all, just lost. So we can either step forward to protect the Tosher. She looks uncertain. Now that you are almost face to face with the beast, shield her from harm, come what may. Or we can urge the Tosher to stand down, whatever this monster is. Now that you're here, it does not sound like a threat. Persuade the Tosher to calm down, and perhaps this need not end in violence. Go with that option. The pallid face of a drowny emerges from the gloom. Glistening skin, wide pelican eyes, and sunken sockets. Her gaze, insofar as you can tell, appears to hold not malice, but hope. Her song is plaintive and soft and utterly wordless, more of a hum than anything else. The Tosher eyes the drowny suspiciously, but returns her stick to the waterlogged basket on her back. That doesn't look like a monster, does it? You look just like a lady. Disappointment and relief wore on her face. A really wet lady. The drowny lurks in the shallow water, only her eyes and forehead visible above the waterline, keeping a careful, respectful distance between herself and the two of you. She is, you realise, trying not to frighten the child. The drowny faces you, bobbing in the foul water, as peaceable as sewer-dwelling monstrosities as ever you did see. "I ain't ever met a drowny," breathes the precocious Tosher. It takes her a moment to adjust her world-view. The much-lauded, batterable monster has turned out to be a fiction. But the child's endless capacity for wonder wins out. Wah! Well, we can approach the drowny. The precocious Tosher's curiosity is fighting a pitched battle with her urge to batter monsters. And winning. She clearly has questions. "Can you talk?" The precocious Tosher's tone is curious. The drowny raises from the water slightly and points to her throat, shaking her head. Long years in the briny Untersee have not done her previously human body any favours. Fluttering strips like gills flower on the side of her neck. She closes her eyes and the muscles flex beneath the skin. Song bubbles from her mouth like water from a spring. Wordless and gurgling. Whatever faculty for melody her drowny nature has given her, it has left her unable to speak as humans do. The precocious Tosher laughs, delighted. "You sound like you're speaking from under a bath. So, you're not a monster? You don't come out of the pipes and eat children when we steal your treasure?" There is a liquid warble, like water disappearing down a drain. The Tosher, alarmed, and then bursts out into giggles. The drowny is laughing. Monster or not, you are all trapped here. So what do you eat then? The Tosher is sitting on a grimy hump, facing the drowny. "We was all making bets. The others said you ate children, or maybe longshanks. I said you probably ate whole cities." She pauses, considering the woman before her. "Oh, that was before I knew you were just a lady, though." The wordless drowny tilts her head to one side, and the laugh gurgles again. Emerging from the water almost to her hip, she begins an elaborate series of charades. These soon set the Tosher off as well, and the cistern is filled with echoing mirth and the occasional shouted guess. "Eels? No? Ah, I thought I had it that time." So we have two options. We can search for a way out of the cisterns. The monster may have been a false threat, but your current imprisonment in the sewers is decidedly not. Or we can search for promising pipes. If you cannot climb your way out of this sump, perhaps you might be able to escape through a pipe or a tunnel. Well, let's start at the top here. Let's search for a way out of the cistern. You place, shudder, a hand on the wall of the cistern. The brickwork has been eroded flat, and handholds are scant. The lowest 15 feet or so are slick with scum and moss. "Slippier than iced over slate on Christmas," says the precocious Tosher. You are forced to agree. Without pittons or ropes, or adhesive suckers on the palms of your hands, there is no way to scale this wall. I guess that means we're going to have to search for promising pipes. There are few pipes within arm's reach, and all are blocked with sturdy iron grates. Even leveraging your full strength, they do not budge. It is an inconvenient place in which to discover competent workmanship. The Tosher watches in growing consternation. What's the point of a longshanks if you can't do all the heavy bits? Even distracted by the drowning, a note of consternation creeps into her voice. "How are we going to get out of here?" The Tosher, watching you poke and prod your way around the cistern, can no longer be distracted by charades. "There's no way up." She is lamentably correct. Well, we can attend to the wordless drowny. Seeing the precocious Tosher's distress, the drowny burbles melodically, gesturing for the urchin's attention. The wordless drowny positions herself in the centre of the cistern and turns her face upwards. Her gills flutter, her diaphragm heaves. She opens her mouth. It begins with a single, haunting note. That note flows into a flurry of others, bouncing back from the barren walls of the cistern, swift like a mountain stream. The wordless drowny's song climbs the brickwork, beginning its long, distorted journey to the stolen riverbank. From here, these front row seats, the song is plaintive and helpless, not frightening at all, but frightened. The song of a trapped creature, but one who yet hopes for escape. The Tosher's eyes are wide. The whole time it was just a call for help, and we heard it. The Precocious Tosher blinks tears from her eyes and raises her own voice to join the chorus. She's squeaky and wavering, but grows in confidence as the drowny performs something that might charitably be called a smile. The urchin adds words to the lament, loud and inappropriate and off-key. Her lyrics would make a governess blush, and the echoes of the tunnels take her words up and away, bouncing them back on themselves, a warped, perpetual cannon consonnating out to the riverbank. After her first verse, she pauses and glares at you. "Come on, milady, join in." The Tosher looks at you urgently. "A regiment's out there. The evening flush was when I was supposed to find a monster. They'll be out by the riverbank now. We knows they can hear the monster. If we sing loud enough, maybe they'll hear us and come get us." Well, we can either join in enthusiastically, being loud and clear offers the best chance of being heard, plus it sounds like a jolly good time, or we can join in but be reserved. The Tosher's lyrics are rather rude, not the kind of thing you'd like to be caught belting at the top of your lungs. Let's join in enthusiastically, that sounds like way more fun. The lyrics are catchy, and it does not take you long to grasp them. Together you bellow obscenities into the filthy tunnels, following the drowny's lead. For her part, she is invigorated by your effort. Her song never leaves its minor key, but the pace quickens, the volume increases, a hopeful glimmer floats into the dark pools of her eyes. You can only hope that the distortions of the sewers are kinder to your lyrics than the wordless drowny's haunting tune. A boom. Something in the distance crashes and shudders. Brick dust falls from the upper reaches of the cistern. The Precocious Tosher jumps with delight, never wavering in her song. Boom! An echoing retort, closer this time, that rumbles within the drum of your chest. Boom! The ground trembles beneath your feet. Let's continue singing. Far from frightening the Tosher, these explosive crashes have reignited the hope in her eyes. She barrels back into the chorus. You're back to the part about the vicar and the sorrow spider again. The crashes offer a drumbeat to pace your singing against. Your final verses are accompanied by a greater clattering and crashing, your obscene aria transformed into an unholy battle hymn. The Precocious Tosher is skipping in circles now, muddy objects flying from her basket. The crashing gets closer and closer. The Tosher ushers the wordless drowny away from the noise, towards the other side of the cistern. 3 bars before the song's filthy final punchline, there is a last, deafening boom. The thunder of cannon fire slumps into a great sigh of relief as brick and mortar surrenders to the superior might of accelerated iron. Billows of dust fill the air, blown outwards from the newly blasted rent in the cistern wall. When the smoke clears, you are faced with a singularly strange sight. A small cadre of straight-backed urchins, caked in dust and muck, haul a single cannon over the sewage and shattered brick. Colonel Molly grins from the rear, and behind her a series of further holes have been blasted in the walls of the other tunnels, leading all the way back to a thin streak of gaslight and the open-ish air of the stolen riverbank. The Precocious Tosher squeals in delight, jumping from foot to foot, while remembering herself and snapping into a lopsided salute. Well, let's greet Colonel Molly. She'd get here. When we heard the monsters singing, the baptism of the Spider Council, we knew something was up. That's one of our favourites. The assembled regiment nod, with grins full of mischief. Thinking back to the lyrics, it is perhaps unsurprising. And then you didn't meet your rendezvous. So we up cannon and blasted our way through the tunnels. Wasn't far, it turns out. Not as the cannonball flies, anyway. He pats the barrel of the cannon with a fondness usually reserved for beloved pets. Good at making doors, this is. I mean, awesome. Urchins load iron shot into the mouth of the cannon with practiced precision. Oh, where's this monster then? Colonel Molly is in her element, her miniature army a well-oiled machine. If they weren't your salvation, it might almost be chilling. So we have three options. We can let the Precocious Tosher explain. The little urchin can barely contain herself. Let her tell of her epic travails. Or we can step aside to reveal the wordless drowning. She has been lurking in the shallow water behind you both, fielded from the regiment's view. We can explain that there was no monster after all. You suspect your account will be clearer and less prone to digression than the Precocious Tosher's. Let's let the Tosher explain. Her account is circuitous and overlong, but the regiment hang on her every word. She embellishes certain details. You do not remember the Rattus Faber being quite so large, and you're pretty sure that the rubbery creature was not, in fact, a dragon. But she flashes you an angry glare whenever you attempt to interject. The regiment are the perfect audience, ohing and ahhing at all the right points. When the Tosher ushers the wordless drowny up from her watery hiding spot, the urchins are primed and ready to accept her as an exciting and slimy ally. Soon enough, the drowny is performing a familiar set of charades in response to the children's myriad questions, to similarly rapturous reception. The wordless drowny is surrounded by a gaggle of curious urchins, peppering her with questions. The more bloodthirsty of the regiment loiter by Colonel Molly, pouting slightly. "Oh, in a blasted beastie," moans a filthy cut purse. The Tosher's front of belligerence is common to them all, it seems. Well, let's make our way out of the sewers. Right, you lot. Colonel Molly is all business. Operation complete. Let's get out of here. The regiment take positions alongside the cannon and half lift, half push the thing across the broken brickwork. They are constantly bickering and jostling, calling each other names and grumbling at the weight, but slowly and surely the cannon moves throughout the tunnels. Urchin power should never be underestimated. The wordless drowny lifts herself from the water. Her legs are more suited to swimming than walking, but she can move across the bricks under her own power. The Precocious Tosher stays next to her, having established that the drowny is not quite a monster and not quite an adult. The Tosher appears to have defaulted to regarding her as a long-time confidant. The going is much smoother on the return journey. The impromptu passages that the regiment have blasted in the sewer walls, while structurally unsound, expose just how labyrinthine and circuitous your initial journey was. You were not nearly so deep underground as you felt. It is not long before fresh air reaches your nostrils, wafted down from the stolen river. Ugh, you truly have become desensitized to the sewer's smell, if the fumes of the stolen river feel fresh. Well, let's check in with Colonel Molly. Once the regiment have got going, there isn't much in the way of colonelling that needs doing. Nice one, my lady. She keeps a careful eye on the cannon's progress, but falls into step beside you. Thanks for looking after her. The Tosher is engaged in charades with the wordless drowny behind you. Maybe she would have been fine by herself even, but I'm glad she wasn't alone. Between you and me, I'm glad it ain't a proper monster too. A cannon is all well and good, but it works best if you don't have to use it, if you catch my drift. He looks down the line of the urchins fondly. Shooting and fighting isn't nearly so fun as talking about shooting and fighting. She stops and looks up at you, eyes serious. Don't tell him I said that. You'll ruin my credibility. Let's check in with the Precocious Tosher. She runs up and down the cavern, unable to decide whether to walk with the drowny or the cannon. You're alright, I suppose, she sniffs magnanimously. We found so many treasures. She has endeavoured to carry all of them in her hands at once, and is faring poorly. Magic rock, sword, warrior princess. She holds them each up for a reprisal as she names them. That's a proper adventure's worth of loot, I reckon. She walks beside you in silence for a moment, wobbling from the weight of the treasures on her back. I think maybe I'm glad there wasn't a monster. Maybe if you go looking for monsters to batter, you'll end up battering something nice by accident. It's nicer to look for friends instead. She punctures this moment of sage wisdom by jumping into a sizable puddle and splashing sewer water over your ankles. And if you think about it, a rescue is even more heroic than a monster battering, innit? And she's not wrong. Let's observe the regiment at work. It is rare that outsiders get to see them working with the cannon. As you clamber over rubble and duck through tunnels surrounded by children's and one lost Z creature, the regiment make up a rhythmic song driven by the beat of their footsteps. The lyrics appear to be entirely improvised and are punctuated by fits of giggles that spread like wildfire throughout the assembled children. But they soon settle around a concrete and decidedly scatological theme. But a short way behind you, the wordless drowny traces a mournful and delicate melody through the drumbeat of the regiment's march. A low, heart-wrenching juxtaposition to the lyric's base subject. The Precocious Tosher's eyes are wide as saucers, and she squeezes with delight before adding her own squeaking to the tune. A song for us, my lady, a Mudlark song. You suppose it is, at that, wistful and fierce and overlooked and utterly mired in filth. Let's emerge onto the riverbank as a gentle movement of the air ahead and the slow dawn of approaching gas lamps. You are almost out of the sewers. The regiment have not nearly begun to exhaust their collective store of euphemisms and obscenities when you breach the riverbank. Compared to the air below, London feels cool and invigorating. The Tosher wrinkles her nose in disapproval. Can't be healthy up here, she says. Tunnel vapours is good for the lungs. Far above, further above than any tunnel ceiling, false stars glimmer and shift. While the rest of the cannon-bearing regiment busy themselves about complex business of extracting their weapon from the riverbank, the Precocious Tosher has eyes only for the wordless drowny. The drowny, for her part, revels in the open-ish air and the slightly less awful water of the stolen river. She casts longing and joyous glances downstream at the broad undersea. Her home awaits. Already, her pelican skin looks less sickly, and her movements less sluggish. Being confined to such tugged waters cannot have helped her health. Well, let's turn to our companions. You're out of the sewers. What's next for your rescued drowny and your urchin charge? The wordless drowny inclines her head in your direction. A slow and grateful thanks. Then she looks to the Tosher. The urchin girl is standing tall, clearly performing some great exercise of self-control. Her bottom lip quivers, her eyes shimmering with suppressed tears. I know, the urchin mumbles. Her nose sounds even more blocked than usual. You have to go home. The wordless drowny holds up a finger and disappears briefly beneath the water. Spots of algae phosphoresce as she darts beneath the surface of the stolen river. When the wordless drowny surfaces once more, it is with a heaped handful of dripping detritus and bric-a-brac dredged from the riverbed. She offers it to the child, gesturing at her own heart, and then the Tosher's basket. Tears of gratitude war with greed and curiosity on the Precocious Tosher's face, with no clear winner. She sits heavily on the mud, accepting the muddy pile and gazing at the drowny with a kind of reverential awe usually reserved for a living saint. Well, let's wave the wordless drowny off. As far as half-dead dwellers of the deep go, he was really rather sweet. "Goodbye," says the Tosher, thickly. "You're the nicest monster I've ever met." The wordless drowny laugh gurgles, slipping back into the deeper waters of the stolen river. She waves a translucent skinned hand goodbye. The assembled regiment wave in turn. They don't even throw any rocks. And then the black waters close over her head, and she is off swimming back towards the waiting Z. A haunting tune follows her all the way to Wolfstack Docks, sending shivers down the spines of pedestrians. Only a select few of you know the words to accompany this song, and no one will ever believe you. The Precocious Tosher sorts through her newly won riches, sniffling surreptitiously when she thinks nobody is looking. The regiment haul their cannon up a wonky flight of steps. Colonel Molly stands beside you, looking out towards the Z. "Cool," he says, nose a wrinkle. "You stink." Great. Well, let's climb out of the filth, bid farewell to the Precocious Tosher, and make for cleaner climes. The Precocious Tosher's new pile of silt-ridden loot is full of wonders. A handle of a cavalry sabre, complete with swirling handguard and ornate pommel. A rock in the shape of a bat. A wishbone, bright and perfect. A telescope with a cracked lens. Something that might, maybe, be a fossil. The Tosher extends a grubby hand towards you. "I suppose you earned a share. If you ever want to go treasure hunting again, I might even let you come with me. As an assistant, like." She sniffs loudly, wipes her nose with the back of her hand, leaving a smudge next to her right nostril. Colonel Molly fires off a final salute as you clamber back to street level, muddied and stinking. Not a single urchin menaces you on your journey back to your lodgings. And here we are at the epilogue. Your clothes have stiffened with mud and filth, a monstrous skin that it takes great effort to peel from your body. It is almost a surprise to find that beneath it all you are still yourself. But here you are, water running from the tap, bathtub scented with roses and lavender, the foul slurry below ground, a distant memory. Your pipes no longer groan and rumble, the rancid stench has faded from the streets. All that remains is to cleanse it from yourself. Let's sink into the water. It has been a long time coming. It is a long process. The sewer's monstrousness clings. It does not want to let you go. But degree by slow degree, you return to your normal form, your everyday scent. You shed this foul and odorous aspect as you scrub. You find yourself humming a low and plodding tune, a marching song, a melody that speaks of treasure and fear and of treachery appearances. It is a tune of contradictions both sorrowful and joyous, innocent and wary. It stays with you long after you are clean, one last unshakable trace of the dark and damp that is just too beautiful to let go. And this concludes the Mudlark's Lament. I enjoyed that exceptional story tremendously. I do enjoy urchins though. They are very fun stories and they tend to have a unique view on the ways of the Neath. Hopefully you also enjoyed this exceptional story. Let me know what you think down below. I don't think the cleanliness of my clothes actually held any bearing on that story at all. It just made the checks harder, I guess, for the sake of training up my skills. I don't know. But if you know otherwise, please do let me know. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members. It really does help keep the channel going and let me make these videos. And as always, I'll see you next time.